Hello and welcome to our program. As one of our specialized paramilitary services, the SSB celebrates 50 years of its existence. Please welcome on our show today IG Ops SSB, Shri S. Goyal. Mr. Goyal, welcome to our program.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on your force turning 50. It's a landmark time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much once again.
And I think a very, very special day, year, series of events for I think all people in the SSB.
It's a very proud moment for us. In fact, it's a very proud year for us. We have turned 50, and it's a very special feeling. I mean, it's a milestone in the long journey. 50 years is not small. True. In the life of an organization, and for SSB it's particularly special because we have changed color in between in terms of change in roles. So it's very special that people appreciate our efforts.
The SSB is a niche force. It's a specialized force providing great support in all military and very often non-military duties also, and yet its role has evolved. So if you could just trace the history a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I think the genesis of SSB is in the Indo-China War of '62. After that, the government of India decided that there should be a specialized force which can create sense of resistance among the border population, build their capacity and capability to take care of such aggressions in future. With that mandate, SSB as Special Service Bureau was created.
Okay.
And it was a force of regulars and volunteers. We took volunteers from the local people, trained them in handling of arms, and built infrastructure for them, took care of their needs. In fact, SSB was the face of government in far-flung areas of the NEFA, erstwhile NEFA, Arunachal Pradesh, and the bordering populations, bordering states with China in particular. So that was the role. It continued till 2001. And post Kargil, our role again changed, and it was decided after that that the states have developed, various capabilities have come up. Now there is need to focus on particular border. So we were initially in 2001 given the Indo-Nepal border, and after that in 2004 we were given the Indo-Bhutan border, and since then we are a border guarding force in the service of the nation.
So in terms of border guarding, we also have the border security force, and you have a very similar mandate. Could you draw some similarities and differences?
Of course, by nature we are the same. Under several international conventions, at the border it can only be a border guarding force. Only a paramilitary or a central armed police force can be deployed. Military regulars cannot be deployed on the international border. So all along the Indian borders, land borders in particular, it is only the CAPFs or the border guarding forces that are deployed. Their mandate is guarding the border, checking crime, the international or trans-border crime, and taking care of the criminals. So this is and smuggling also, or informal trade that takes place between the two countries. So in terms of that, all the borders are similar. All the tasks assigned to border guarding force like BSF is there, that takes care of the Pakistan and Bangladesh borders, and now Myanmar also. Then you have ITBP that is deployed on the Chinese border, on the Tibetan border, Indo-Tibetan Border Police Force.
Right.
Then we are the border guarding force, SSB, that takes care of the Indo-Nepal and Bhutan borders.
So it's a kind of a specialization, and I think different things are required for different borders.
I agree with you. You see, a question may be asked that when BSF is doing it, why not BSF all over?
Why have duplication? Right.
It's not, I would say that in the medical profession, why do you have super specializations? So the basic mandate is the same. On the Chinese border or the Tibetan border, ITBP's requirements are totally different from those of Bangladesh border or Nepal border or Bhutan border. The intelligence requirements are different. The requirements of the population are also different. The warfare tactics are totally different. So I don't think that if you have one force and expecting one person to be expert of all, would be difficult. He can be jack of all trades, but he may not be master of none.
Okay.
So with that mandate, I think it's a very wise thing to do, that on each border, the group of ministers recommended that one specialized force should be deployed.
All right. And I think with the scenario changing, with the number of threats and the kinds of threats and threat perception changing, I think specialization is critical.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when people work day in and day out on that particular area or a border, they develop the domain knowledge, which cannot be supplemented by an outsider, by rotation of people or bringing in outside elements. It would be very difficult.
All right.
Yeah.
So the SSB is, if you note, on both friendly borders, the countries are friends. Some challenges there?
Well, maintaining friends is the biggest challenge, isn't it?
Even in real life, I think that's the toughest challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have a very unique responsibility. We have no visa regime on this border between the residents of Nepal and India, Bhutan and India. It's a porous border, open border. There is no fence and electrified fence like the western border. So we have to sift the grain from the chaff or the criminals from the general population by keeping our eyes open and keeping our ears on the ground. So that is the biggest challenge. One bad incident can spoil relations, can strain relations with the neighboring country. So one has to be very sensitive and alive to the sensibilities of our neighbors while guarding these borders.
So in terms of training of sensitivity of the Jawans, because they must be coming from diverse backgrounds, do you run special programs?
Absolutely. Otherwise, we not only run the sensitivity, soft skills programs for them.
Right.
We also teach them the local languages.
Okay.
We have language labs set up, and we train them, we encourage people, or rather train them to pick up the local language so that you communicate with the local populace in their own language. The moment you talk to a person in his or her language, they are at ease. And the initial tension goes, and there is no need for ice breaking further. So that, I think that helps us a lot.
So from an HR perspective, you're training your men and your officers to be sensitive, and वो कहते हैं ना घुलने मिलने की आप एक क्रिया उनको बता रहे हैं. तो कहीं there is an emotional attachment to the place, you tend to grow to like the local place. That brings in a little subjective element. Yet, as men in uniform, you need to maintain that objectivity. How do they manage the balance?
Well, it's a very tough balance that one has to maintain. Our motto is Seva Suraksha Bandhutva. We earn the sobriquet of being people's force because we carry out a large gamut of activities by way of civic action programs. You will be surprised that in the earlier role and even now, every year we treat lakhs of border population who don't have access to regular medical care. We treat lakhs of the livestock that cannot be brought to the veterinary dispensaries.
Okay.
Our veterinary wing, our medical wing, they go to the village from village, and they follow all the national missions, be it AIDS, be it polio. They go from village to village administering these medicines. So that is one. So we work with communities, and we develop micro infrastructure, solar lighting the whole village, providing a community hall, building roads, that kind of activity we undertake.
In terms of technology, in terms of skills and the latest technology available to the man on the ground who goes actually the last mile, where are we placed?
We are very comfortable. So far as technology is concerned and modernization is concerned, Government of India is after it. The 5-year perspective plan has been prepared.
So it's a priority.
Absolutely priority, and the key areas is the weaponization, the communications, living accommodation, surveillance, and effective border management.
In terms of international, I think give and take and exercises, does the SSB also interact with other border forces across?
Absolutely. You see, borders, the sanctity of the border is supreme for any force. I mean, we on this side, we don't want anybody to violate. Similarly, we don't want to violate theirs. So you will be happy to learn that why we have such lovely relationship with both the countries, within the, by both the paramilitary forces of both the countries, is that we have joint patrollings.
Okay.
One, we have joint patrolling, periodic joint patrolling, and periodic joint checking of the border pillars. That can be cause of some kind of conflict. So once we do it jointly, both the sides sign it jointly, there is no scope for this.
So Goyal, talking now about the SSB, it's been 50 glorious years. Today, if you say that there is something which this force has a USP about, other than its clear mandate, what would it be?
Well, very interesting. I would say we are the perception warriors. We manage the perceptions, and this was the earlier mandate also. That it was a very challenging task, managing the perceptions of the border populations and training them through the civic action programs and building their capacities. This is our USP, that we are a people-friendly force. Whatever we do, we respect the human values and we work with them. We like to work with them, work through them, and we capture their minds and hearts. This is what Pandit Nehru, when SSB was created, he said war was not about winning territories, or it was not preparation for war was not only about preparing guns. It was about winning the minds and hearts of the border population who could be an adjunct to them. So I think that's very important, and that's what we do in practice, and that is our USP. What differentiates us from other border guarding forces is that you go to any place where we have served, the people so fondly remember SSB. Why? Because we do integration of border population with the mainstream. This year, for instance, 54 educational tours for the border population, students culled out from the various remote villages were brought to several cities of the country. They interacted with the local people, they interacted with the local leaders, and they learnt about India. It's such a good learning for them. Several the agriculturists, farmers, they are taken to GB Pant Institute or some other agricultural university first time in their lives.
Okay. What an experience it must have been.
Absolutely. So when they come, we normally at Force Headquarters, the Director General is very particular, Mr. Arun Chaudhary, he is very particular that these people must feel that we are there for them. And when they come here, you talk to them, they have crossed probably the boundaries of their state first time in their lives. So that is what is our USP, that we work to be with them emotionally.
What about recruiting women officers?
Well, yes, why not? My question is, why not? And I can see I can see the twinkle in your eye, but let me tell you very proudly that SSB is the first border guarding force to induct one full battalion of women in its ranks, and today, mind you, they are doing similar duties on the borders.
Okay.
No difference. Similar duties, they are tough, they are as lean and mean as men would be.
So कहते हैं ना, कंधा से कंधा मिला के
एकदम कंधे से कंधा मिला के काम करती हैं, and we are very proud of them. We are probably going to recruit more.
So even in terms of areas where you might require some kind of a combat or some kind of that duty, you're happily deploying women?
Yes, we are. At the moment, whatever duties we are doing, except we don't have them in Jammu and Kashmir, and we don't have them in the anti-Naxal operations. But on border guarding duty, they are a very critical part of our setup.
For a person who's been trained in a lot of theory and a person who's had a lot of practical experience, some instances where you felt that that was theory, nothing prepared me for this.
Well, you always have such situations where the academies and they cannot prepare you for a moment, but they always give you the sound operational tactical knowledge or legal knowledge. I mean, when you go inside a building, when you are storming a building, like in Kashmir, one had to do that quite often. And if you are going inside, now nobody teaches you what methodology you are going to use. You are demonstrated a few ways, but then by your knowledge, by your experience of interacting with the inimical elements, you devise your own ways.
So it comes together.
It does come together, but the basic grounding that you receive in the training institutes cannot be, I mean, cannot be just said, okay, it's not required or it didn't help me.
Okay.
It does prepare the base.
So finally, it could be the machine, it could be the technology, but it's the man that brings it all together in the uniform, and that is so critical.
Ultimately, it is the man, it's his judgment that is going to help.
Very true. Well, Mr. Goyal, we'd like to thank you for coming on the show, but we'd also like to share with you that Doordarshan has been very proud to partner in the making of a film which actually celebrates these 50 golden glorious years of the SSB. So while we say thank you very much for joining us on the show, we'd request our viewers to stay tuned and take a look. Thank you very much. Stay tuned.